Boys and girls, when you sit down, we are actually going to be coloring in your turtle using a wet on wet technique. Now, in case you don't know what I mean by that, when we have watercolor, and we're going to actually be using liquid watercolor today, but I wanted to show you even with this because a lot of you have this kind of watercolor at home. This is what this means. Because the watercolor is dry, and right now my paper is dry, if I paint with dryish watercolor on dry paper, we call that dry on dry. So I can show you that I'm going to put this into the blue. I have to get it wet a little bit because it's watercolor. But when I come here, I'm able to do something very precise if I want to, because the paper is dry and my paintbrush is pretty dry. Okay? Now, contrast that with what's going to happen if I do dry on wet. Now, dry on wet means that I'm going to be taking a brush. I am going to take clear water and I'm going to wet the paper. You'll always be able to see it because you should be able to see a little bit of a shine on there. And I'm kind of putting on quite a bit of paper. This time, if I put my paintbrush into here and not use a ton of water over here, I'm going to do the same thing. But this time when I come to do my technique here, it does not look the same. Do you see that? Now there's times where you like that look and there's times where you want that kind of look. Now, what if we do wet on dry? Well, what that's going to mean is that my brush is very wet. I'm trying to get my liquid watercolor very wet as well. And I'm going to come onto dry paper. This time I have this kind of a look. My brush, it's a little bit harder to control, but I can still see what I'm doing. Now, you can only imagine what's going to happen now. Wet on wet means that I'm going to, again, take some clear water, wet my paper. Now I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to get it very, very wet in the paint. And when I come now, forget about it. It's like really, really, really like that.